Good evening and welcome back to another episode of The Longing. Today we are going to be continuing to read The Sleeper Awakes by H.G. Wells. Big surprise. So, let's get going. A mighty tumult was in his ears, a thunderous roar, the shouting of a countless multitude. It is the Sleeper. The Sleeper is with us. The Sleeper is with us. The Master, the Owner, the Master is with us. He is safe. Graham had a surging vision of a great hall crowded with people. He saw no individuals. He was conscious of a froth of pink faces, of waving arms and garments. He felt the occult influence of a vast crowd pouring over him, buoying him up. There were balconies, galleries, great archways giving remoter perspectives, and everywhere people, a vast arena of people, densely packed and cheering. Across the nearer space lay the collapsed table, like a huge snake. It had been cut by the men of the flying machine at its upper end, and had crumpled down into the hall. Oh, it's cable, not table. Men seemed to be hauling this out of the way, but the whole effect was vague. The very buildings throbbed and leapt with the roar of the voices. He stood unsteadily and looked at those about him. Someone supported him by one arm. "Let me go into a little room," he said, weeping. "A little room," and could say no more. A man in black stepped forward, took his disengaged arm. He was aware of officious men opening a door before him. Someone guided him to a seat. He staggered. He sat down heavily and covered his face with his hands. He was trembling violently. His nervous control was at an end. He was relieved of his cloak. He could not remember how. His purple hose, he saw, were black with wet. People were running about him, things were happening, but for some time he gave no heed to them. He had escaped. A myriad of cries told him that. He was safe. These were the people who were on his side. For a space he sobbed for breath, and then he sat still with his face covered. The air was full of the shouting of innumerable men. Chapter 9. The People March. He became aware of someone urging a glass of clear fluid upon his attention, looked up, and discovered this was a dark young man in a yellow garment. He took the dose forthwith, and in a moment he was glowing. A tall man in a black robe stood by his shoulder and pointed to the half-open door into the hall. This man was shouting close to his ear, and yet what was said was indistinct because of the tremendous uproar from the great theatre. Behind the man was a girl in a silvery grey robe, whom Graham, even in this confusion, perceived to be beautiful. Her dark eyes, full of wonder and curiosity, were fixed on him. Her lips trembled apart. A partially opened door gave a glimpse of the crowded hall, and admitted a vast, uneven tumult. A hammering, clapping and shouting that died away and began again, and rose to a thunderous pitch, and so continued intermittently all the time that Graham remained in the little room. He watched the lips of the man in black, and gathered that he was making some explanation. He stared stupidly for some moments at these things, and then stood up abruptly. He grasped the arm of this shouting person. "Tell me," he cried, "who am I? Who am I?" The others came nearer to hear his words. "Who am I?" His eyes searched their faces. "They have told him nothing," cried the girl. Tell me," cried Graham. "You are the master of the earth. You are the owner of the world." He did not believe he heard aright. He resisted the persuasion. He pretended not to understand, not to hear. He lifted his voice again. "I have been awake 3 days, a prisoner 3 days. I judge there is some struggle between a number of people in this city. Is it London?" "Yes," said the younger man. "And those who meet in the great hall with the white atlas. How does it concern me? In some way it has to do with me. Why? I don't know. Drugs? It seems to me that while I have slept the world has gone mad. I have gone mad. Who are those counsellors under the atlas? Why should they try to drug me?" "To keep you insensible," said the man in yellow. "To prevent your interference." "But why?" Because you are the Atlas, sire, said the man in yellow. The world is on your shoulders. They rule it in your name. The sounds from the hall had died into a silence threaded by one monotonous voice. Now suddenly, trampling on these last words, came a deafening tumult, a roaring and thundering, cheer crowded on cheer, voices hoarse and shrill, beating, overlapping, and while it lasted, the people in the little room could not hear each other shout. Graham stood, his intelligence clinging helplessly to the thing he had just heard. The council, he repeated blankly, and then snatched at a name that had struck him. But who is Ostrog? He said. He is the organizer of the revolt, our leader in your name. In my name. And you, why is he not here? He has deputed us. I am his brother, his half-brother Lincoln. He wants you to show yourself to these people, and then come on to him. That is why he has sent. He is at the Wind Vane offices, directing. The people are marching. In your name, shouted the younger man. They have ruled, crushed, tyrannized, at last even in my name. My name. Master. The younger man suddenly became audible in a pause of the outer thunder, indignant and vociferous, a high penetrating voice under his red aquiline nose and bushy moustache. No one expected you to wake. No one expected you to wake. They were cunning, damned tyrants, but they were taken by surprise. They did not know whether to drug you, hypnotize you, kill you. Again the hall dominated everything. Ostrog is at the Wind Vane offices, ready. Even now there is a rumour of fighting beginning. The man who had called himself Lincoln came close to him. Ostrog has it planned. Trust him. We have our organizations ready. We shall seize the flying stages. Even now he may be doing that. Then, this public theatre, bawled the man in yellow, is only a contingent. We have 5 myriads of drilled men. We have arms, cried Lincoln. We have plans, a leader. Their police have gone from the streets and are massed in the inaudible. It is now or never. The council is rocking. They cannot trust even their drilled men. Hear the people calling to you. Graham's mind was like a night of moon and swift clouds. Now dark and hopeless, now clear and ghastly. He was master of the earth. He was a man sodden with thawing snow. Of all his fluctuating impressions, the dominant ones presented an antagonism. On the one hand was the White Council, powerful, disciplined, few, the White Council from which he had just escaped, and on the other, monstrous crowds, packed masses of indistinguishable people, clamouring his name, hailing him master. The other side had imprisoned him, debated his death. These shouting thousands beyond the little doorway had rescued him, but why these things should be so he could not understand. The door opened, Lincoln's voice was swept away and drowned, and a rash of people followed on the heels of the tumult. These intruders came towards him, and Lincoln gesticulating. The voices without explained their soundless lips. Show us the sleeper, show us the sleeper, was the burden of the uproar. Men were bawling for order, silence. Graham glanced towards the open doorway, and saw a tall, oblong picture of the hall beyond, a waving, incessant confusion of crowded, shouting faces, men and women together, waving pale blue garments, extended hands. Many were standing. One man in rags of dark brown, a gaunt figure, stood on the seat and waved a black cloth. He met the wonder and expectation of the girl's eyes. What did these people expect from him? He was dimly aware that the tumult outside had changed its character, was in some way beating, marching. His own mind, too, changed. For a space he did not recognize the influence that was transforming him. But a moment that was near to panic passed. He tried to make audible inquiries of what was required of him. And with that, we come to the end of the episode. So, I will say thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon or night, No matter what time of day it is, I hope you all have a wonderful one of it. And as always, we will be back tomorrow for more of The Longing. Goodbye.